Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, how are you today? I hope you're fine and stay safe because in this pandemic we have keep ourselves healthy. Well, we are from group 2 and our material is about human communication tree system. Firstly, we want to introduce ourselves first. My name is Fatmi Febryanti. I am as the first speaker and moderator. Well, guys, if we are talking about communication, for the first, we have to know what the meaning of communication itself. Ketika kita berbicara tentang komunikasi, kita harus tahu apa sih itu komunikasi? Well, communication is a process of delivering information, message, or ideas from one party to another. In general, communication is done verbally or non-verbal, which can be understood by both parties. If there is if there is no verbal language that both of them can understand, komunikasi tetap dapat dilakukan dengan menggunakan gerak tubuh or gesture atau menunjukkan sikap tertentu. Misalnya, tersenyum, menggelengkan kepala, atau mengangkat bahu. This way disebut komunikasi non-verbal. Communication comes from the Latin communis, which means the same, communico, communicatio, or communicare, which means to make the same, make to common. Secara sederhana, komunikasi dapat terjadi bila ada kesamaan between the delivery of the message and the person receiving the message. Oleh karena itu, communication depends on our ability to understand one another. And then, humans also communicate to share knowledge and experience general forms of human communication, including signal language, speech, writing, movement, and broadcasting communication can be interactive and transactive. Second, component of communication atau komponen komunikasi. Communication components are things that must be in place for communication to take place properly. According to Laswell, the components of communication are: first, sender or communicator is the party who sends message to other parties. Second, message is the content or purpose to be conveyed by one party to another. Third, channel is the medium in which the message is conveyed to the communicant. In interpersonal communication or called face-to-face, the channel can be air which transmits the vibrations of tone or sound. Fourth, the receiver or communicant is the party who receives message from other parties. In the last, feedback is the response from receiving message one on the content of the message it conveys. The rules agreed upon by the communicators on how the communication will be carried out the protocol. Communication. Secara ringkas, proses komunikasi you can see in this picture. Yang pertama, communicators or senders who have the intention of communicating with other people send a message kepada orang yang bersangkutan. Pesannya dapat berupa informasi in the form of language atau melalui symbols that can be understood by both parties. Yang kedua, encoding adalah proses konversi informasi dari suatu sumber objek menjadi data yang selanjutnya dikirimkan ke penerima atau pengamat seperti pada sistem pemrosesan data. Yang ketiga, media atau saluran sebagai sarana penyampaian pesan dari komunikator kepada komunikan. Yang keempat, decoding adalah mengekstrak data yang telah di-encoding tadi ke dalam bentuk sinyal asli atau asalnya. Dan yang terakhir ada komunikan atau penerima. Menerima pesan yang disampaikan dan menerjemahkan isi pesan yang diterimanya ke dalam bahasa yang dimengerti. Okay guys, that's all my material. Thanks for your attention. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Well, thanks for the chance that has been given to me. Let me introduce myself again. My name is Tiara Rahmadani, and on this opportunity, I will explain my material that is about terms in communication and speech. Communication or istilah dalam komunikasi. Intercultural communication is when a member of one culture send a message to a member of another culture. Komunikasi antar budaya adalah ketika seorang anggota budaya mengirimkan pesan kepada anggota budaya yang lain. Intracultural communication, where message senders and receivers share the same ground rules. Komunikasi antar budaya di mana pengirim dan penerima pesan memiliki aturan dasar yang sama. Factors that support success communication. The first, frame of reference or kerangka acuan. The second, similarities at the level of education, knowledge, and cultural background. Persamaan pada tingkat pendidikan, pengetahuan, dan latar belakang budaya. The third, overlapping of interests is greater, the easier that communication process will take place. Pertautan minat dan kepentingan yang semakin besar, semakin mudah pula komunikasi berlangsung. Speech requires the manipulation of the tongue, lips, vocal cords, lungs, velum, and all other parts of what is commonly called the vocal tract. Menurut beberapa ahli psikologi, it requires such complex integration of nerves and muscles that is difficult to imagine how anyone ever learns to speak. The speech centers of the brain are physically more intensive than the centers controlling any other from activity. The portion of brain apparently involved in controlling tongue movement alone are nearly 20 times larger than those controlling leg movement. Despite the fact that the tongue muscles are only a fraction of the weight or of leg muscles. That's all from me. We move to another material from my friend Ica.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Let me introduce myself again. My name is Ica Sulistianti, and here I wanna explain my material that I deserve into some point. And the first material is about sounds and meaning, and the second material is about writing, and the last material is about mixed writing. And well, let's start to the first material is about sounds and meaning. So guys, when you wanna do some communication, of course, in communication have kind of that communication, like sounds and meaning. And if you wanna talk with someone, you have to make sure your friends can listen your voice, and that's called sounds. Every sentence out loud by your mouth, of course, have a meaning, right? The answer, of course, yes, because if you talk without meanings, that's cannot called you do communication. Because why? Because every word you say must be able to understand with your friends, and there is no logical or necessary relationship between the sounds of word and their meanings. Ladies and gentlemen, when we are speaking, our tongue is in constant motion and the tongue is the key of clear word that we get. Jadi, ketika kita berbicara, lidah kita tetap konstan mengikuti pengucapan dan posisi lidah kita itulah yang menentukan kejelasan dari kata yang telah kita ucap. In producing speech, our brain is prepare a nation to say. Jadi, sebelum kita berbicara, otak kita telah menduga atau menyiapkan kalimat apa saja yang akan kita katakan. That's proof bahwa saat kita berbicara, otak kita bekerja dengan sangat cepat. Jadi, ketika seseorang melakukan komunikasi, apa yang mereka pikirkan, mereka kemudian mengekspresikannya melalui suara atau yang disebut sounds. Understanding the relationship between meaning and sounds is the important point for linguistic inquiry. And well, let's move to the second material, and that is about writing.
Well, another kind of communication that is writing. Writing also important in communication. Writing can be able the escort of communication. So, dalam komunikasi, menulis juga menjadi hal yang penting. We treat the dialogue, we can make some communication with another person, and we can see the example that writing can be of communication, like every time we usually do a chatting with our friend by a message. I'm sure you guys always do a chatting with your friends, right? Yes, that's the example how writing also important in kind of communication. But linguistics are usually more interested in speech than writing, and writing has often been viewed as a reflection of speech. Although we no proof, but we assume that speech preceded atau mendahului writing. This assumption is supported by the observation that children can learn to speak before they learn how to write. Well guys, there are three basic types of writing. First is logographic. Logographic writing, that is a letter, symbol, or sign to represent a message. And the next one is syllabic writing. Syllabic writing is writing system in which character represents syllable. Contohnya yaitu huruf hiragana. Huruf hiragana digunakan pada negara Jepang di zaman silam. Huruf hiragana biasanya selalu digunakan oleh perempuan Jepang. And the last one is alphabet writing. That is a writing system based on alphabetic character. Well, let's move to the last material is about mixed writing. The first is gesture. Gesture or talk, speech, and writing seems more systemized and pervasive than gesture. Gesture was probably the first form of communication. Istilah gesture yang digunakan di sini untuk mencakup semua human komunikasi yang melibatkan melambaikan dari tangan dan wajah sinyal. Genres of vocalizations lain yang tidak membuat kata-kata, apa yang sering disebut bahasa tubuh, dan berbagai manipulation dan dari lingkungan yang telah komunikatif. Maksud seperti asap sinyal, a gesture, then is a physical manipulation that is neither verbal nor graphic but incommunicative. One cannot doubt that gesture was basic to development of human communication, and that's it is still much used. Even when it is inappropriate, people gesture while they speak. Jika kita melihat orang yang menelpon, you will see them nodding, waving their free hands, shrugging, and otherwise complementing their speech with a whole repertoire or motion that are completely was on the person. At the other end of the line, communication is also conjugate talk, gesture at distance when speech is impractical. For example, referees at football games use a system of gesture to communicate the infraction of rules to the crowd. The most discussed forms of gesture communication fall under the heading of skin speech, which is the study of the position, head movement of the body and its parts during conversation. This gesture range from a wink to nodding the head to thumbing the nose. Different cultures often employ different gesture. For example, the difference between the handshakes atau jabat tangan of two middle-aged American business people and two young inner-city blacks. Although certain gestures, such as smile, are more or less universal. Modulations of the voice, often called paralanguage, also affect communication. The example, the language of affection is spoken in a soft voice, while aggressive arguments are conducted in a loud voice with extreme shifts in pitch. Proxemics is the study between two speakers in conversation, another factor in communication. This social space varies from culture to culture. Well, I think enough for me. Sorry for a mistake, and wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.